Okay, so we'll bring up space-time here.
I have good news and bad news.
Yeah.
Bad news first.
Okay.
2 years ago, we reported on the crisis in cosmology. Since then, it's only gotten worse.
Oh, no.
And actually,
Well.
the good news is also that the crisis in cosmology has actually gotten worse.
Yeah.
Which means we may be onto
So
something.
every once in a while you'll see like an orientation of one of these things different. Like, I don't know if somebody was throwing in a curveball or if it matters mathematically to why the structure of these things that do that would change the orientation. Not to mention the schematics. Like, that's kind of crazy between the actual kind of thing that it's doing, right? You know, it wants to do certain things.
Each other, and yet they don't. We first reported on the growing hints of this tension 2 years ago. Back then, we expected
The reason this is hard to look at mathematically right now is because I've been kinda in the think tank here lately.
One of these methods received a massive refinement
As far
due to
as
the Gaia mission, and its
like what I've been taking on for the obviously Kunin's law, electrical field, and electrical potential. You know, we're gonna, in terms of the equations that fill certain things, it gets squishy. It gets pretty squishy. And so I bring up the cosmological constant here because I would like to keep some of the problem that comes up with that orientation is fixable. It doesn't just deteriorate the entirety of the universe, but it acts like physics, right? You're going to have to do some geodesics to think about where you were that missed the projectile momentum, and there's very useful and interesting ways to deal with that mathematics, especially when what would be the next page to the mathematics, Ohm's law, Faraday stuff. You'll see like the free electron E, Q, R, right, and then it's going to get into Q, lowercase q, over R squared, and some other stuff. But third degree Master Mason, right, you know, there's a basic wire, you get things mixed up and around, and then there's some geometry. Then you get to the point where this capacity is what this structure is, kind of plus a step, minus a step, because an LED is a diode. It's a type of one-way valve, but you can overamp, it'll burn out, make heat, have electric fields, right? It'll have a spectrum to it. And when you do it just right, and I'm not saying that I did all the way, I'm saying that gets pretty pattern screamery about being between 0 or 1, 0, and -1 in the motor there of a 3-phase with 4 wires. Right, come on, you killing me now.
Measure the pulsation rate, and
the difference between training techniques can do that too. And if you go looking at a bunch of people's indexes about specifically fields or terms that give it a heading and a netting, and what that would be, you would find a niche, some Higgs collision at the 3rd phase from the
Type 1a supernovae that result when a white dwarf star explodes after cannibalizing its binary partner. Using these supernovae to get distances to galaxies halfway across the universe, they found something totally unexpected. Not only is the universe expanding, but that expansion is accelerating.
There we go.
So, dark energy,
so this is a transformer, but I want you to look at this like it's one thing, right? But it's two different ways that a field comes at it. And if you play with it just right and you squint your eye,
it became very important to perfect our measurements of the expansion rate.
And so if you watch what I'm doing, even though it's out and still playing this way, now I might have to do some things, negotiate why it does what it does inside of there, because I could have took out a step. I could have an N1 M2 with K, what is it, N1 K N2 before you get into QQ and stuff, because this actuator is still part F1 plus F2 minus F1. What I need it to be, all this minus to a diagram plus 1, and it might be anywheres on that.
One alternative method for getting the expansion rate is
in
to
different
study the
fields.
oldest
I need
light in the
temperature.
universe,
It's like
the
heat's
cosmic
bad all the
microwave
time.
background.
I don't
This
know.
light was released only a few 100,000 years after the Big Bang and carried with it vast
So it's
information
fun, you know,
about
and the more you
universe's
get into
early
it, the
state.
more you can play with some
Now, I'll
amazing
leave you to
stuff,
watch
dude.
our
And you
previous
can,
video on
with
the
little
subject
cookie
to
crumbs
see
and
how
little
our
hidden
map of
paths
the
around the bunny
CMB
farm that you might have
using
missed
the
before.
Planck satellite can give us the expansion rate.
Way to use string theory in here is as the news to get them tied up just by laying it out in there and seeing that bunny kick and squeal.
Let's not worry about the weird units right now.
It's a
but they
timed
also
event,
claim an
almost.
uncertainty
At
of
this
about
point in time, can you go
0.5%,
through it? What can you
making
do
it
with
the
it?
most
What am I
precise
really doing
measurement
with it?
of
It's
the
kind of
expansion
unknown
rate
field.
ever made.
It's electrical. It
Meanwhile,
could be an
Adam
electron
Rees, one of the
position for it.
Nobel-winning discoverers of dark
But
energy,
it'll
has doubled
collapse,
down on
like,
supernova
right
method.
to it as
A
soon
couple
as,
of
like,
years ago,
if I
his
could get
team
Ben
published a
Eater
new
or
Hubble constant of 73.5 plus or minus
A-level
1.5
physics out there,
kilometers per second.
semi-imperial,
It's in the same ballpark as the Planck result, but far
soft
enough off
linear,
to
yeah,
raise
you start throwing
many
stuff together.
eyebrows. One possible
Then,
explanation for the
Ohm's
difference
law,
is that the nature
right?
of dark
It
energy
is
has changed over time.
VIR,
The Planck team's Hubble constant
V,
assumes that dark energy has
or
had
excuse
a
me,
constant
I,
density for the entire age of the
VR,
universe. Now that's what you'd expect
R,
for the simplest
VI.
models of what dark
Right.
energy might be.
And if
But
you
if
go
dark
looking,
energy
poking around,
has
and
changed over time,
just
it could
right,
explain
and
the
again, squint your
discrepancy
eye and
and
do this.
indicate that dark
Get your
energy
bunny
is
ears
even
dialed
weirder
into
than we thought. It's
to
hard
one
to
of those
overstate how
frequencies
huge
right
a
there, and
discovery that
you're
would
good to go.
be. So you can see how it might be nice to find out one way